Hi everyone, welcome back to this little series that I'm doing about frugal living. We're going to rename this now the Frugal Files. So it's episode 3 and it'll be 5 just random tips of how myself and my husband live our lives. Thank you so much for all the comments and everything on the last 2 videos. It's great for us all to share tips because, you know, some people have some ideas and do certain things and we can all help each other out. It's absolutely brilliant. So thank you so much for watching. So tip number 1 today is to try and eat more vegetarian meals. Now, often vegetarian options can be cheaper. And by this, I don't necessarily mean going out and buying like a vegetarian alternative to a meat, because actually they can be just as expensive sometimes. But if you use things like lentils, chickpeas and eggs, you could use cheese as the main part of the meal instead of meat. You can save a bit of money sometimes. So yeah, basically use something different other than meat as your protein. Keep things simple, you know, things like beans on toast or egg on toast, or egg and chips, egg and potato waffles. You know, there's loads and loads of things. I mean, there's loads of videos, or you can look in books or whatever to get ideas. But yeah, just try and have a couple of vegetarian options in the week if you can. And you will definitely save a bit of money because meat and fish have got very expensive. The other thing that you can do is bulk out your meat. So if you're cooking something like a bolognese, for example, you could put some lentils into it, either some green lentils from a tin or some red split peas, and it makes the mince go so much further. And you don't even really notice that they're in there. They're very healthy and good for you as well. You can also do things like grate carrot and courgette, things like that, which again you can pick up relatively cheaply to bulk out any kind of mince dish. And I am going to do some recipes hopefully next week, so I'll definitely be doing things like that, so you'll get to see them. But yeah, let me know what your favourite veggie meals are, you know, cheap ones, or frugal ones, shall we say. I love things with, you know, tins of pulses are really cheap, chickpeas, and you could do a curry. You can do chili, veggie chili using different kinds of beans and pulses. And there's so many tins that you can get now. There's black beans, there's black-eyed peas, butter beans, so many different things. So yeah, don't always go straight for the meat as an option. Tip number 2 is to do your research. There's some really, really good websites out there and YouTube channels and books and all this kind of thing. But 2 websites in particular that I want to mention are Energy Saving Trust and also Martin Lewis. Now, the Energy Saving Trust website is really good for things to do with saving energy, which also then save you money. There's loads and loads of ideas on there about things that you can do with your house to save money, things that you can, you know, do electricity and gas and all this kind of thing. So I highly recommend checking that one out. And Martin Lewis, brilliant website. There's absolutely loads on there. And if you don't want to kind of wade through it all, you can subscribe and get an email from him every week, and it says his top tips for money saving, and they're from, you know, on a massive range of subjects: bank accounts, you know, heating, electricity, food, travel, money, so many things. So I really, really recommend his website and signing up for the emails each week. Tip number 3 is to do with cars and travel. Now, when Martin and I first moved here, we actually had 2 cars. When we both were teaching, we had a car each, even though we didn't particularly need a car each because we taught at the same place. But, you know, we had a car each. When we moved here, we first of all decided that we were going to go down to 1 car. And it's been absolutely fine. You know, we said we'd have to be cooperative with each other. So, you know, if he wants to go somewhere different and I also need the car, maybe I drop him off, maybe he drops me off. Maybe one of us gets the bus or gets a lift with a friend. Or, you know, you could get a taxi, because if you occasionally have to get a taxi, it's still going to cost less than running a second car. We also thought long and hard about what type of car we were going to run, and we eventually went for a Fiat Panda. Now, I know they're not everybody's cup of tea, but it is so cheap to run, and I'm so glad that that's what we decided to get, because it runs forever on a tank of petrol. The tax is hardly anything. The insurance is fairly cheap. And actually, do you know what? It's an all right little car to drive. I quite like driving it, and I don't particularly like driving. And it's quite spacious for a small car. So yeah, that's the first thing. The second thing is to think about how many journeys you do. You know, if you're, say, dropping kids off at school in the morning and you also need to do a supermarket shop, can you make sure that you do everything in one go, so you're not making several trips out? That we try to do that. You know, if we're going, say we want to go to Totnes one day in the week and we need to go to the Tip, and I also want to meet up with my mum, I'll try and clump all those things together. So kind of batch your journeys together as much as possible if you can. The other thing, of course, is to walk or cycle, get the bus if it works out cheaper. Again, kind of do your research. Could you car share with somebody if you both work in the same place? You know, take it in turns to drive, this kind of thing. Again, it's about thinking outside the box a bit and planning your time and your journeys and things like that. There was a guy where we used to work, and it was for environmental reasons more than money, but he didn't have a car. It was him, his wife, and they had 2 kids, and they lived in the town, and they were great cyclists, very fit, and the kids were happy to walk. So they used to mainly walk everywhere, and a couple of times a year they used to hire a car and go to all the places that they couldn't get to, either on the bus or the train or walking or cycling. And if they needed to like buy anything big, you know, they would ask for help, friends for a lift. Or yeah, he was a great guy actually, and it was really interesting. This was years ago, you know, but he swore blind that it was cheaper than owning and running a car. And occasionally, if he needed to, again, he'd get a taxi. So yeah, just have a think about it. There's a very good website and app apparently called petrolprices.com, and it will compare the price of petrol in your local area. I think it updates between every 1 and 3 or 4 days, so it's fairly relevant. So you can go onto there and see where the cheapest petrol is in your area. So again, that's another thing to do, is keep an eye out when you're out and about, seeing which petrol's cheaper, or like I say, try and get this app and use it. Tip number 4 is also about food and thinking about free food. Is there any way you can get free food? So you can obviously forage. You know, this time of the year in the UK, there's things like blackberries which can be picked. Although I've not seen any very good ones this year. I don't know whether the summer was too dry, they needed a bit more rain. But yeah, people around here as well seem to put out big baskets of like windfall apples and things like that. So keep your eyes out for any free food. Most towns have a food bank if you need it, you can go to. But also a lot of communities will have something going on where it's not quite so formal necessarily as a food bank. I know in Brixham where I live, a friend of mine, Val, she runs a little food cupboard just on a little patch of garden, and people leave things or take them if they need them. The local Tesco's has an arrangement with one of the community centres that any bread products that they have left over at the end of the day, they leave them outside for people to take. So there's endless things going on if you find out about them. And I think if you don't need to get free things, perhaps think about, is there anything in your cupboards that you don't need that you could give to the food bank or the food swap? There's another thing in Brixham called the community larder, which is where people put things that they don't want anymore, or that they know that they're not going to use, and then other people can take them who will use them. So again, it's about finding out what's going on in your area, and of course thinking as well about growing some of your own food, if that's something that you're either interested in or you think would be a good idea going ahead in the future. I've been a bit rubbish this year at growing stuff. I have got a big trough thing in the garden, and in previous years I've grown quite a lot of salad stuff in it actually, but I just wasn't really feeling it this year because I didn't know if we were moving or not. But you know, again, you can grow herbs. You don't need a massive garden or an allotment, unless of course you want to get an allotment, in which case you could grow loads of stuff. But you know, you can grow herbs in pots on your windowsills. I believe tomatoes don't need a great deal of space. You can do potatoes in pots. Salad, cut and come again, or whatever they call it, salad is a really good one to do. I have done some of that this year. So yeah, there's lots and lots of things that you can do. And again, there's loads of information out there. So just do a bit of research and yeah, see what you can come up with. I think as well there's there can be like community allotments as well, where people get together and grow stuff and then share the produce. So that might be something that you would be interested in. But yeah, free food, foraging. You have to be careful with foraging. You have to know what you're doing. I've actually done a couple of foraging courses over the years. I did one about edible seaweed, and I used to volunteer at an orchard, and I used to get lots of apples then and blackberries and things, and we had a lady that used to come there and teach us foraging. But you really do have to know what you're doing. Nettles are a good thing to pick in the spring. You can put them in soups, you can make pestos from them, you can make like nettle fritters with chickpea flour. Yeah, there's lots of things. So if it's something that you think you might be interested in, then go for it. I forgot one other thing as well. On the Martin Lewis website, there's a whole big section about free food. It's not of particular interest to me because I don't tend to eat sort of fast food, but apparently a lot of the like Burger King and KFC and all this, if you download their apps, you can get things for free. So if that's your kind of thing, check out the Martin Lewis website, and there's a section on free food. And also people get these too good to go bags, and you know, I know that they're not free, but they are apparently a good bargain. I've never tried them. Tip number 5 is to get yourself kitted out with all this sort of thing. So, you know, reusable cups. No, they are good for the environment as well, but you can, if you've got a flask, you can take your own tea and coffee out with you. We've found that it's best to just take boiling water in the flask, not milky drinks. It makes the flasks last much longer. And you can get things like this, which have already got the milk in them. I just take a little thing like this with all my different tea bags in because I don't have milk. Or you could just take a little pot of milk separately. A lot of cafes and things will give you money off if you take your own coffee in. And sorry, I'm squinting again because it's really sunny outside now. Things like EasyJet give you 50p off a hot drink if you take one of these on the aeroplane. So it's well worth getting yourself things like this. Like I say, we tend to take them out and about with us if we're going for days out. This is a food flask, keeps food warm or cold. And again, you know, you can make a really simple picnic even in the winter. You can take soups, stews, all that kind of thing out in that to eat, so that you don't have to pay for expensive sandwiches and things like that. Obviously, I'm not saying don't ever go out for lunch. I also carry snacks around with me as well, just in case, you know, if you get a bit peckish, or especially if you've got kids who always seem to be hungry. Take stuff with you. It saves buying expensive things. The same with water. You know, there's often places where you can refill water for free. A lot of cafes do that now, and places like airports, they often have drinking water. So yeah, anything you can take with you, save buying, is a good thing. I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. See you again next time. Bye.